March that be able to keep the heart and soul of the community center going after 6 months of our doors being closed and locked. But, in terms of just community events, I'm just thrilled that, we're able to really continue and getting used to this Zoom format. And we're also seeing a lot of silver linings of really great opportunities to have really great topics and wonderful guests. And so, we're trying to stay positive and really stay focused on these silver linings that are taking place. And so I just want to thank all of you for joining us. And I see many of the people who are part of our book read this summer when we read How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. So it's great to see this group continue, and we're going to continue doing events like this. So I'm going to hand it back over to Alexa Davidson, who's on our community center staff, and she's going to be our moderator for tonight.
Thanks, Dave. And if I could have everyone take a moment to mute themselves, just will be, what happens on Zoom is if your camera comes on and noise is made, it will interrupt our speaker. So if you could take a second to mute yourself, that would be great. So I've been starting all of our community unlearning events by reading just a couple sentences from our racial justice statement that we created as a center. And I'm going to start with that today just to ground us in why we're here. We choose solidarity over silence. We stand with the Black Lives Matter movement and those across the United States who are making their voices heard, shouting loudly that racism is unacceptable. In a country built upon colonialism, slavery, and privilege, we must do our part in dismantling these systems of oppression. We commit to examining how we can create an actively anti-racist organization. So I just want to give a quick introduction to what the Community Unlearning program is. We acknowledge that every day we continue to learn and grow. And in fact, this is why we started this program in the first place. As a community center, one of our strengths has always been around community education and community building. And so we created this program that aims to re-educate and bring awareness to our communities about the realities of racism. And we value bringing different voices and perspectives into our community, and inviting Royce Mclemore here tonight embodies this goal. Our focus is on education and conversation and exploration, and we hope to create access to new information while inspiring action right here in our own community. And I want to acknowledge before we get started that the Golden Gate Village housing issue, which Royce will be sharing about tonight, is a very complex and a very contentious issue in our county. And as a nonprofit community center, it's not our role to endorse or to take sides. Rather, it's our role to amplify voices for change and to encourage our community to engage in critical thinking about the issues of race and racism. So we're really looking forward to having Royce here tonight to share some information with all of us. I want to give a quick, I'll come back to this slide at the end, but we have 2 upcoming events after our conversation tonight. The 6th annual Peace Festival is coming up with speakers speaking about inner peace, the UN development goals, and how they're creating peace in their communities. And then we have our 2nd book read. This time we're reading The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. And I will be putting links to those things in the chat so that you can register for those upcoming events. So now welcome Royce, and thank you. I'm going to read a bio about Royce and all her incredible life accomplishments, and then I'm going to give Royce a chance to introduce herself. So thank you for being here, Royce. Uh-oh, you're muted.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So Royce Mclemore is a Marin County leader and activist, and she's the executive director of Women Helping All People, and a bold leader in the Golden Gate Village housing issue as president of their residents' council. Women Helping All People was established over 30 years ago and has evolved into a family resource center and has offered computer literacy classes, GED classes, free clothing and household item distribution, after-school programs, and more. In 2000, Royce was involved in the development of a small Christian school for grades K through 8 in Marin City. Royce's foundation for activism was built as an active parent and advocate in the Sausalito School District. And above all, Royce is the proud mother of 5 children, 21 grandchildren, 7 going on 8 great-grandchildren, and she has housed over 200 foster children throughout her lifetime. So thank you, Royce, for being here and taking time out of your incredibly busy and beautiful life. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. So I would encourage everyone to put this on speaker view so that you can see Royce, and if you're on gallery, that works too, but we can really get a closer view of Royce here. So I want to give you, Royce, just a chance to introduce yourself. Tell us about you, your work, and what inspires you in the fight for racial justice.
Well, it hasn't always been that way. Let me just say that. It started about 53 years ago as I was involved within the Sausalito School District. And I was a parent at that time, and with other parents, we were able to actually bring down the Sausalito School District, where they had to, the county schools had to step in and reorganize. And you have to understand that it was also in the 60s, and when there was a lot of activism going on, and the Black Panther Party, we had a chapter here in Marin City, and there was always a little burning on the inside. And then I had an opportunity to go hear Stokely Carmichael speak at UC Berkeley. And after that, I was really sort of a changed person. Even though I was, married and had 4 children at that time, was still, it was burning in me. And so we did our own school, a freedom school. It was located in Village Baptist Church, and we had about 45 children, and it was all based on volunteers, and we had it down to a clockwork. However, the next year we ran into problems, but we kept pushing forth because at that time, it was about truly power to the people. And so we took over a school, right, that had been vacant in Marin City for over a year. The alarm was going off and it was being vandalized. So a group of us parents just took it over, cleaned it up, had books sent there, and we started school. What happened was the Sausalito School District of course, they didn't want us there. They tried to, push us out, and we stopped them, and it took them to bring the sheriff's department to come, PG&E to actually cut the wires from the pole. So then we still didn't stop. We followed the sun and continued on with our school. My second oldest daughter, she was in kindergarten at that time, and Pacific Sun came out and did a story. And here was this little 5-year-old little girl sitting as a silhouette while she was reading a book. It played a major toll, this activism, on my marriage. I ended up, separated from my husband, but so then I felt within me free to just go ahead and just be with 5 children that are literally, they were stair steps. from baby to 1 to 2 to 4, and then my older daughter. Um, and I had my Berkeley experience. I think everybody needs to have one. I don't know about today, but back in the day, it was always a place to really want to be. And so that was my opportunity to move to Berkeley with my children, and to really be involved in movement over there. Um, From that, we had a little school over there, and I lived there for about 3.5 years. Then one day I decided to come to Marine City to visit my mother. My mother would always come and visit my sister and I. And everybody I saw, they would say, Royce, why don't you come back home? What are you doing over there? So then I said, well, why not? I'll try. And I did. That I spent the weekend. That Monday I went to the housing authority here, and to see what was going on. But I do have to say that after for when I turned 30 was when my life began to take a change. I had reached like bottom. You could reach the bottom without being a drug addict, alcoholic, or what have you. But I had reached my bottom. I mean, I didn't have a belief system at all, and my grandmother had told my mother, no good is going to come to her because she is, talking the talk that she's talking, and that was true. So in my Berkeley experience, I met a lady, an elderly lady, and I told her all of my problems. And so she said, honey, do you pray? And so I said, no. And so she said, well, that's what you need to do. You need to tell everything you're telling me, tell it to Jesus. So I looked at her and, so when I left her house, I was walking back home, and the thought came to me, you've tried everything else that was wrong, literally. What do you have to lose? And that's what happened. And I started praying and answered prayer. And the more I prayed, the more prayers were answered. And that's really how, I got born again, truly drawn in. Um, as a little girl, I went to a Christian school, and I was 9 years old. And we lived in Marin City, lived there since I was, 3. But I used to travel from Marin City to 10th and 9th and Judah. And I don't know, catching the Greyhound bus and then a couple of Muni buses at 9 years old. But I had a Bible, and all throughout the Bible, I would underline as I was reading on all my travel. So my mom gave me this Bible, and I looked at it and I said, oh my God, how profound, even at 9 years old. So when I came back here to Marin City, I, with my children, and when I went to the housing office, unlike today, where they have, a 5-year waiting list, back in that time, no waiting list, really. I went in and talked to the eligibility clerk, who I happen to know personally anyway. And so when I got through talking to her, she said, well, Royce, how would you like to move into a 4-bedroom? I said, what? Really? She said, yes, it has been vacant for 5 months. No one wants to live there. I said, why? Because of the next door neighbor. I said, man, I don't care. I could be a gorilla living there, because I was living in a 2-bedroom with 5 children. So I was moving into a mansion. And coming here, was very grateful to be back home. At that point in time, I did homeschooling I was doing homeschooling with my children. And that was my life then, just really around my children, raising them and teaching them. And it was our lifestyle of, homeschooling and all that it entails. And I enjoyed it. We used to just go up into what is now the GGNRA uh, to hike around, and brought back a lot of memories from my childhood.
Mm.
Um, After my children went to uh, public school, they were in the sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, and one was in the 10th grade, and she was going to TAM. So when she went to TAM, the other three every morning, because we had, a regiment for sure, and they would say, "Oh, can we go to public school? Can we go to public school?" So then one day I said, "Are you ready to go into Egypt?" They said, "Yes, we're ready." So that's when I enrolled them at Martin Luther King. I do want to say at that point in time, Martin Luther King was a distinguished school, like every school that is distinguished in Marin County. It wasn't a Title IV or Title II distinguished school. And I felt comfortable in releasing my little angels, at Martin Luther King. They did well, graduated from Martin Luther King, and I must confess that when they went to TAM, they could not handle the freedom of Tamalpais High School. So that was another journey. But in the meantime, with them going to school during the day, I, I didn't have anything to do. So I got involved with our resident council, and start talking about resident issues. In what is it, 19, I think 82, 83, 80 to 85. I was actually, it was 85 to 90. I was a housing authority commissioner, and I took my job seriously. I guess everything I do, I have to put my whole heart in it. And so uh, it turned out that, and I tell that story, I said, "There's some place at the Civic Center that has my name. Do, do not ever put her on any type of commission, ever." Because I really, challenged the Board of Supervisors. And at that time, there was the 5 men and then one elderly white woman. And I mean, they really couldn't understand, where I was coming from, because I didn't back down on anything. And um, I was there for 2 terms, and then I'm part of one. But after the end of my second term, of course, they got someone not more knowledgeable, but anybody other than me. And and it was like in 1990, and we had a supervisor. His name was Al Arambaru, and um, he liked me. He was, and so he knew that although he didn't vote for me to come back, but on a personal level, he liked me. And I went to him and told him about this group that my neighbor, elderly woman, her name was Miss Maddie, wanted to start a program for women. And they needed a place to after we met in my yard, we outgrew it and we needed a place to meet. And so he supported it and took it to the board. So they said, "Okay, we'll give you 6 months and to see what you can do." So it was at the same time that the Marine Community Foundation had started cutting back on funding in Marine City. So what we did, and I was free to do whatever I wanted to do. That's the joy of being a volunteer. I We went to all of the different organizations here in Marine City that were providing various services, but because of the uh, foundation cutting back on their big budgets, they start dropping programs. So as they dropped programs, we picked them up and we said, "We'll do them for free." And that's how we started our after-school program. A few months after, we were able to. There was one of the women that was a part of our group that used to volunteer at the Ritter House, and it was during a time where there was transitioning going on, and so Ritter House agreed to allow us to, by providing us with the merchandise for Marin City. And so that's how we started our Finders Keepers shop. And I mean, every little community action Marin, they had the program, we still do it with them, for the rental assistance through Season of Sharing. So we took that on. Everything we did, we volunteered to do it. And so that's how our program, began to really grow. In the meantime, when I was housing commissioner, it opened up not only the door to get our place, but also as it relates to our computer lab. Again, Al Rambaroo helped set it up, and we were able to provide, back in the day, computer training. And I share with everybody, it has not always been an adversarial role with the housing authority. Back in that time, we were partners, literally, and they help Women Helping All People get a grant for a children's computer lab. So then we had one for adults and one for children, and we were outgrowing the space. So we ended up, the housing authority, Annette Rose was our supervisor then. She looked at this boiler room, which was storage. She said, this is a lot of wasted space. So we were able to transform that into, at that time, about a 16, 17 computer station, our computer lab. Things went really well until we've had, for 16 years, we ran the landscaping for the property here. As an organization of Women Helping All People, we didn't make money, but we were able to provide jobs and pay people decent salaries at that point in time, and be able to put a little money into, to meet the budget.
Yeah.
So from there, fast forward to 2010, we had, resident council, etc. So then actually it was in 2005 when we were able to reorganize a resident council again, and we had the election. So we had it in 2010. His name was Dan Nackerman, was the executive director. And him knowing that the resident council is the official voice for the residents here, well, he illegally evicted us from our office spaces and denied us our right to have an election. From that, we had no voice. And so they tried to create a county-wide, which is still against the law. So finally in 2012, 3 residents working with Bay Area Legal Aid filed a lawsuit in federal court. 2014, we got our rights back.
Yeah.
We had an election, but no office space. From 2013 to this very day, our resident council, working with a strategist that we met, that was really a godsend, developed the resident plan of deep green renovation and retrofitting of Golden Gate Village. And part of our strategy was to put it on the National Register. It was at the same time that the Civic Center was applying for the World Heritage List. So we said, at least, that's the least, because they were sister properties done by Aaron Green and Frank Lloyd Wright. And, this was the orphan child. But we worked to tear down those barriers to let people know. This is why you could see similarities in our high rises in the Civic Center, the architectural design on how the buildings are built into the hills, etc.
Right.
And so that's how we got to that point. But in the meantime, the Housing Authority from, I would say, 2010, they had a plan, probably it was even before 2010, of deep green, of wanting to tear down Golden Gate Village. And there was a commissioner, her name is Hazel Goff. She's a Black woman resident here. They went into executive session supposedly to evaluate the executive director. But when they got behind the closed doors, they start talking about wanting to tear down Golden Gate Village, as well as Bradley House in Tiburon. And so Hazel came and told us and what was up, because it was against the Brown Act, what they did anyway. And with that being happening, we were able to, stand off, hold off the county from, I'd say, 2006, 5, 6, up until, well, we're still holding them off to today.
Yeah, and just so that I think that most people kind of understand what's going on with Golden Gate Village, but I just want to give like a little brief background for folks who maybe aren't fully aware of the issue. But Golden Gate Village was built in 1960 to replace the temporary housing that was constructed for the Sausalito shipyard workers during World War II. And
Correct.
Many of those workers were African American who migrated from the South to escape Jim Crow and to help in the effort for World War II. And then when the war ended, African Americans, including those in Marin City, were prevented from buying homes in our communities through restrictive racial covenants and commercial redlining. And over the decades, the Golden Gate Village evolved into a vital African American community for the residents who remained in these areas. And now, 60 years later, Golden Gate Village desperately needs updating and renovations. And there's now this kind of back and forth between the Residents Council and the Marin Housing Authority of whether to go with this proposed deep green renovation plan or to redevelop the Golden Gate Village by tearing down buildings, rebuilding. And residents, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but one of the main fears is that this type of development that the county is proposing could invite gentrification and change to the community and displace those who are living in Golden Gate Village. Is that kind of sum up the issue that it's
part when it would be finishing the gentrification.
Yes,
because
exactly.
Marin City has gone from a community of 98.5 Black community, and it was a very viable community growing up here, to now we're about 26% Black. And so you can't just blame it all on the housing authority. But I do want to say, from the end of the war, the county wanted Marin City, the Black people, to go back where they came from. And people said no, because they were making good money and conditions, even though there were races all around them, but within Marin City, it was home. So that's, then what happened was the white flight. White people left and were able to leave. There were only maybe 4 families from Marin City that were able to buy anywhere within Marin County, and with the, crosses burnt on their house, on the lawns, and the whole 9 yards. So the safest place really for Black people to be able to live is in Marin City. And Vera Schultz, who was the first woman supervisor representing our area, she met with people. She had compassion for Black people. She knew what it was like in the winters when we had to walk through, you know, almost ankle, calf high water to get to the main street. Went to Washington, D.C. and prevailed. But there 30 rotten politics even back then, trying to stop it from happening, but she prevailed. So she got the land. She commissioned Aaron Green, and who was Frank Lloyd Wright's West Coast partner. And so they worked together in putting this together, Golden Gate Village. Golden Gate Village was built for permanent housing for really the Black people that were left. There may have been maybe 2 white families that remained in Marin City, and maybe a Filipino family, but the rest were, you know, Black people. But it goes all the way back then. But this is now where the you know, where what they say, the dust meets the road, or the road meets the dust, or the fork in the road, and all of that, because now they want it, and they want it badly. And there have been enough, you know, white people have moved in, but they have not been able, it's a bedroom community for them. They have not really been able to take ownership in where they live. They believe that they're living in, or will say that they're living in Sausalito or northern Sausalito. But and many of them bought in here on the guise of Golden Gate Village going to be torn down, and a mixed income community will you know, replace it.
Right.
Then you go see that, you know, that other movement. But we are working and standing strong and believing God that we are not going anywhere, and that our plan is a real plan. And now we are, you know, really, the word has gotten out. We have friends of Golden Gate Village who, you know, want to right the wrongs that were done. There've been so many broken promises to the people of Marin City, and that's why it's even more gentrified. All of the development that has happened in this valley was because of the people within, sellouts, you know, and that aren't around today, and that help with that gentrification. So, you know, I strongly, you know, believe that we are going to prevail, even though the housing authority, the conditions of many of the buildings, you know, it is squalor. I took a video of one of the garbage chutes was stopped up, and people didn't have anywhere to put garbage. We can't even get environmental health to come to Marin City. They go anywhere else, but they won't come to Golden Gate Village. So, I mean, we've been discriminated all types of ways. And that is why we finally were blessed to file a $200 million lawsuit for habitability issues, as well as our civil rights being violated. From that, it's, you know, picking up traction, and now we have a team of attorneys who are working with us as it relates not only for the habitability lawsuit, but are going to make sure that all of the environmental laws are adhered to. And so if we don't get them, you know, one way, you know, we'll get them tied up in federal court until I go to glory. Now but I plan on being here quite a few years. So I just believe that we are going to see truly the revitalization of the neglect that Marin Housing Authority has done to this property. It's just a shame, but we're going to see it revitalized.
Yeah. And Royce, when we spoke earlier this week, you talked about like if you could wave a magic wand and Golden Gate Village could be what you're imagining, what would that be?
It would be where all of the homes would be deep green renovated, and brought up to code. The integrity of the buildings could go another 100 years, but we're talking about on the inside, some upgrades and a community land trust so that people here would be able to buy into where they live. And I was in a conversation today with one of the head planners at the county, and he said, well, Royce, there is talk about a community land trust. I know you'd really like to hear, move in that direction. So I said, yes, but are you aware that they're talking about a community land trust, but not at Golden Gate Village? He said, no, I thought it was all about Golden Gate Village. I said, no, it's the housing authority or the county of Marin who do not want a land trust. They want to put it in the hands of private development so that they can, reap the benefits and force poor Black people out of Marin County. And not only just Golden Gate Village, but Black homeowners who are on fixed incomes now will be forced out of here with the high cost and, the different taxes and bonds issues and etc. So we're pushing forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
And from what I can tell from you and from some of our partners, Marin City has an incredible amount of community engagement and civic engagement. I believe I heard from one of our newer board members, Bonnie White, and from the county that Marin City is close to reaching 100% on its census this year. Can you tell us a little bit about how the community is coming together, how you're building this momentum for activism and engagement within your community and beyond?
Well, within my community, I would say honestly, people, I think either they have the most tremendous faith in the universe because they're living their lives on a daily basis as if they're not going anywhere. And if you ask your a resident, well, why aren't you more involved? They'll tell you, well, Royce got it covered. And so, because they know that I am a woman of integrity and that it's not even about money with me, it's about principle. And, I love the way that I was raised. I love my community and I want to see it back to, and that's what's in my mind that keeps me going, a place where Black people can thrive here in Marin City, that under new management with the shopping center, that the broken promises to people, that people can start up their Black businesses. And I think about as a teenager, the Black businesses that were here, people didn't have to have an MBA. They just had to have the willingness to work and to fulfill their dream. And that's a lot of people have dreams here and ambition, even though they, got bamboozled in that whole Marin City, USA. It would have been better for our community if it remained the flea market, which is a whole nother, issue. So, but I'm just one that's not a sellout.
Yeah. You're going to keep driving.
It's cost me, I might add. I mean, threats of evictions and retaliations and the whole 9 yards, but I'm in it to win it.
Yeah. We're glad you
Like,
are.
like my great grandmother I told you about.
Yeah. Yeah. Amanda, right?
Amanda. Yeah.
Do you want to share about that at all with this group or?
Well, Amanda was my great great grandmother, and Amanda was a slave. And this is what my grandmother told me, that um, my grandmother had a lot of resistance in her, and her mistress would tell her, Amanda, you're not going to amount to any good because you're not, you know, you don't do what you're told to do. And so you're looking at a modern day Amanda.
Yeah. Like John Lewis said, good trouble. Got to be up.
Good trouble, good
Yeah.
trouble, good trouble.
Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit because this has been, like I said, we've been having these types of community conversations here in our West Marin community. And I've noticed that during movements and calls for racial justice, the focus is often placed on the communities of color rather than the white communities who are also living and benefiting from segregated neighborhoods. But you often really focus on the communities of color as being the segregated neighborhood. And white liberal communities like our own and like many other in Marin, we often get focused on helping the disadvantaged folks rather than actually addressing systems that they themselves participate in upholding and systems that are actively disadvantaging the groups that they're actually out to help. And so I'm curious to know your take on how do we shift this framework and how do we engage white communities who have great intentions, into actually kind of getting at the systems rather than kind of focusing on the symptoms.
Well, in having a conversation just today with the county planner, I am still concerned about a proposed 74 unit development that is proposed to happen here in Marin City. And in talking to him, what happened is, if in fact this new state law, SB 35, and he was telling me that's going to change everything, that as long as if anybody is able in California able to find property and will guarantee that it's 100% affordable, then they don't have to go through the CEQA process. And so I said, oh, every community? He said, yes. And I said, wow, I can imagine how that's going to really set in Marin County. So it's going to really be interesting to see uh, what Marin County and other counties are going to try to, put it on the ballot to repeal it or whatever after the damage is done. But yeah, and I share that with you, even though we had, a Black community, and, why are you living in a segregated community, to be inclusive in the whole 9 yards. And I say Marin City is the most diverse community in the county. And to really make a difference, well, the state may be going to help Marin County make a difference because there will be other pieces of property, but it's going to be interesting to see the backlash on when that happens. And, like back in the day, Marin City, that's why they had the 300 units, because Marin City was considered at that point in time the workforce for Marin County. Now Marin City is no longer the workforce. You have the Latino community is now the workforce of Marin County. However, when I thought about it, and I was at a meeting, one of those board of supervisors meeting at concerning Marinwood, that you have people who don't mind the workforce being their nanny, being their cooks, their housekeepers, their uh, handyman, but they don't want them as their neighbors. So behind the scenes, what is Marion County doing? This is another reason why they want to push Black people out, because even though they're proposing 150 plus uh, units now, there's nothing stopping them, this developer, once they get started, to build 1,000 units. He was asked that question and he said, yes, but we'd have to go through this process again. Well, if the money's right, they'll go through it as many times as necessary. So, and like I shared with you, I can't get, you know, I can't even, it's not even in me to get angry or worked up over um, racism, because I do understand that it is a condition of the heart. It's the condition of the heart. And, people are have that feeling even though they don't know a person, or they're only going by what has been ingrained in them, what's been taught them as children. You admitted yourself in terms of Waldo Point, and you visited, but you didn't really. So I mean, but um, and then yesterday I was doing a tour, and one of our main streets is Drake Avenue, and so our attorney said, "Well, Royce, what are your feelings about Drake?" I said, "Well, I thought about it." Just in terms of, while everyone's wanting to tear down statues and this, that, and the other, and changing names on everything, but their heart's not changed. So what difference does it make? So it doesn't matter. Drake, I mean, if you look at Black people of today, when we came over here as slaves, I mean, my last name is Mclemore. That's my married last name. Well, that's because my husband's family, they were slaves on a Mclemore uh, plantation down in Texas. And so you can look at who were Irish.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can look at my husband's side of the family with the red hair and freckles. So you know what was going on then. So, I mean, but time marches on. And so here we are today. And, people really need to pray about their heart and change their heart. I mean, that's what I received when I had my Berkeley experience. I went to Berkeley one way and I came back transformed. And the racism was still here, but, I had to look at them in a different light, because they don't know any better. They're doing what they know, what they've been raised to believe. But then they look at me as, in a strange way, because I know we're equal. I know it. And that's how I treat people, like we're equals.
Yeah.
Period, So, but it is. People just, and that's what when I shared with you about what can white people do in this county. Well, they can. They can, while their heart is getting worked on, they can go to their supervisors and tell their supervisors that they support the Golden Gate Village Resident Council, a deep green renovation and retrofitting plan, that we support it. And and we should be given equal opportunity. And if they start to backpedal and, well, let them know you mean business. Either they do that, or they will not get elected or start a recall. That is what happened to Susan Adams in Marinwood. She wanted to have a little affordable housing on a vacant shopping strip. And they said, hell to the no. And they meant it. she was not reelected again. And that's how Damon got in on keeping it the way that it is. So you got a lot of, you have majority in this county. And I do understand that there's, some talk in the canal of rumbling Dennis's little feather bed. And so he's sweating some bullets because he wants to really please those in West Marin. He wants to please you. And that's why he asked, a few little lame comments, but trying to get the heat off of him. Keep the heat on him. Make him do the right thing. You can, as well as the others.
Thank you, Royce. And I want to switch gears and open up the chat for some questions from our people who are here. So let me see what I've got.
While you're looking, I do want to let everyone know that the Golden Gate Village Resident Council, we have a website that is explains everything, our past, present, and future. And there's some good videos on there, and there's also Truth or Spin, but an excellent piece done by two of our friends of Golden Gate Village that, tell the truth about Marin Housing Authority's spin.
Got it. So there's a question here that says, would there be a way to affirmatively act / proactively house African Americans in Golden Gate Village that would not be considered racism?
But
I'm not exactly sure what that means. Sorry.
I don't either.
Maybe Marion, if you want to pop in, you're welcome to. We've got some love in the chat. Someone says, "Thank you, Royce, and I so hope to share a space with you in another time. I love that the community center is supporting this. You're amazing, Amanda's great-great-granddaughter."
Thank you.
Well, maybe since we have a little bit of time, if anyone wants to raise their hand or ask a question directly, I can open it up for that. I'll take a look at all of you. Here's a question from Skip Schwartz. Why do you think the Marin County supervisors are not here?
Money. A lot of money. A lot of money. A lot of money. And that is to be made if this were to go through. In fact, initially, who brought Louis Jordan to Marin County was your ex-supervisor, Steve Kinsey. So we see what happened to him. So it's all about money.
We got some more love in the chat saying, "Great, thanks for coming to speak with our community."
Thank you.
So any other questions for Royce before we give her a huge round of applause and say thank you for sharing and your heart? And we're all working on our own hearts here in the community.
No, raise your hand. Raise your hand.
Oh, Rich and Linnea, do you have something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Royce, thank you, yes, again, for coming. It's wonderful to hear you speak. If we as a group could do something besides talk with the supervisor, is there something that group action that could be done? Any ideas about that?
Well,
it's an amazing issue, and it's so local, and we're here, and it'd be great to help you with something.
Well, we do have a GoFundMe fund that is for our lawyer, depositions, etc. Because as a small, very small resident council, we only get like $3,000 a year. And so that's what, the housing authority is depending upon. But if we can get donations to the Golden Gate Village Resident Council, we have a development fund that's purpose only is pushing our development going forward. But you really don't realize if you really think about what happened in Marinwood. So there's something that you can do. I mean, if you really want to push that envelope, and that is with your supervisor. I mean, he's one of the ones that not only sit as a supervisor, but they all sit as housing authority commissioners. So they're wearing that double hat. And that's why I'm saying what I'm saying as supervisors. I mean, I could see people who have a different agenda, who have an agenda of equality for real, that that are sitting in those seats, making decisions with changed hearts, that feeling that everybody should have equal opportunity. I'm sure that there might be 5 people somewhere within this county, or one within each district within this county that has a real heart, a true heart for change. Because yes, you can march and this, that, and the other, but we're still faced with what we're still facing with. You're still in, your cozy place. But to really be an accomplice means that you've got to really be willing to put yourself on the line. And that's what happened back when there was the last major move, like with Martin Luther King, etc., to advance equality for all.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Linnea. And Brian, I see you have your hand up.
I do. I have so many questions. One of which is, Royce, what is the status of the federal lawsuit? I think you touched on it briefly earlier, and I'd love to hear more about where it's at and what a good outcome from that law.
Well, everyone has been served, and so it's that period in between where they have opportunity to respond. What our whole thought with it, are we prepared to go all the way? Yes. Do we really want to go all the way? No. What we really want to do is to make the housing authority sit down, listen to us, and not only listen to us, agree as a people, as residents of people who live in this neighborhood. You know your neighborhood. Yes, we have purposely neglected it, but the least we can do for the Marin City and the Golden Gate Village is to implement the plan. See, what the housing authority fails to tell people, and I know there's song by heart, is Marin City people don't want to leave the community. So the only way that we can guarantee that they don't leave the community is if we do a build first. So that build first means that they're going to be demolishing some of the people's homes and then building 108 unit monstrosity, four stories tall. This is in a historic district that's blocking off all views, taking all of our open space. That's our park area. So they're not going to be able to do that because of the whole CEQA. So that's going to be 8 to 10 or 12 years, and people are still expected to live in the conditions that they're living in. we can't have that. So what we're working on is our lawsuit. What our aim is, yes, to take it to HUD in San Francisco. Once we have everything, we're working on all of the concepts of our plan, putting the meat to it, to go straight to HUD. Because there is the ability to, Marin Housing Authority is mismanaged not only this property, but other properties in their portfolio. So that's it.
Thanks, Royce. All right, I can take one more question if there's one more in the gallery.
I definitely have another one, but I'll let some other folks chime in.
All right, if there's no one else, we'll come back to you, Brian.
Yeah, Alexa, I had a question.
Yeah.
Okay, Rich, again, Royce, thank you. Wonderful presentation. I appreciate your thoughts also about racism, the question of the heart, really that registers with me. Wanted to clarify that the Housing Authority is a county group, or does it have state or federal implications as well? Or can you just clarify who is that authority and who gives it that authority?
The authority comes from the state to organize a housing authority. So it's under the state, but they get their public housing funding from HUD. And HUD still has a hold on the land. So they have to get HUD approval. And so the Board of Supervisors, what they've done, they have appointed themselves as the Housing Authority Commission, and then they have 2 at-large residents that sit on it. One of them has to be over 62 or disabled, and then, one of their programs. So that's how it works.
Thank you. That's clear.
One question from the chat is wondering if there's a list of Black-owned Marin City businesses that we can support. Or
well, there is our art gallery is getting ready to open up, but there's no Black businesses in Marin City, and the reason being, you would be able to rent a place in Sausalito for a business cheaper than our shopping center here. That is about 3/5 empty or 4/5 empty. And this group here, they're making big money for it being empty. So.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone says they missed the flea market.
Yes. It brought in revenue for our district, and where, we got county money because it was our money, but we were not dependent upon the county.
Yeah. Well, Royce, just from all of us, I want to say thank you for your tireless activism. I can hear in your story that it's not easy, and that you have integrity, and that you will persist, and you are here to stay. And your story has touched me, and it has touched all of us. So thank you for inspiring us here tonight. And we hope to be better bridge to your community in Marin City, because it sounds like you, we have a really tight, wonderful, lovely, committed, dedicated group of people, and we want to be able to parlay that into a really strong relationship with you and your community. So thank you for being here. We appreciate.
Thank you for inviting me, really. And it's an opportunity to share, and as well as when the couple that was just on, now I know they know my old buddy Don Dean. Because that was my end to the Bolinas world. And, people say, oh, well, Marin City only has one way in and one way out. I said, well, look at Bolinas. What's the difference? That's what's good about it.
Yeah. Well, if everyone could unmute and give Royce a big hand.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for inspiring us.